The gunshot echoed across the dusty plains of Colorado Territory, 1878, as Olivia Dawson ran for her life through the tall grass, her heart pounding like a stampede of wild horses. Blood trickled from a graze on her shoulder, staining her once pristine blouse crimson as she pushed herself beyond exhaustion. Behind her, the distant shouts of her pursuers grew fainter, but she knew better than to slow down, especially when one of those voices belonged to Maxwell Reed, the man she'd fled from 3 days ago. Olivia stumbled into a shallow creek, grateful for its cool touch against her burning feet. She followed its winding path, hoping the water would mask her tracks. The late afternoon sun beat down mercilessly, and her parched throat ached for relief. She cupped water to her lips with trembling hands, drinking desperately before continuing her flight. As darkness began to fall, Olivia spotted the warm glow of lanterns in the distance, the small frontier town of Whispering Pines. She'd heard of this place from travelers passing through her hometown of Silver Creek. It wasn't much, but it might offer temporary sanctuary. The main street was quiet as she limped into town, her dress torn and dirty, her dark hair falling loose from its once neat bun. A few townsfolk gave her curious glances, but no one approached. Olivia made her way toward the saloon, where piano music drifted into the night air. She needed information, perhaps work, and most importantly, somewhere to hide. The Golden Spur Saloon was lively despite the late hour. Card games occupied several tables, while a piano player coaxed a jaunty tune from a battered instrument. Olivia hesitated at the entrance, suddenly aware of how she must appear. She straightened her spine, lifted her chin, and stepped inside. Conversation faltered momentarily as heads turned in her direction. Olivia ignored the stares and approached the bar. The bartender, a stout man with impressive mustaches, raised an eyebrow. "Water, please," she said, her voice hoarse from disuse. "That'll be a penny," he replied, eyeing her disheveled appearance. Olivia dug into her pocket, relieved to find her small coin purse still there. She placed a penny on the counter, and the bartender slid a glass of water toward her. "You look like you've had a rough journey, miss," he commented. "You could say that," Olivia murmured before drinking deeply. "New in town. Just passing through." The bartender nodded, seeming to understand her reluctance to share more. "Name's Henry, if you need anything." "Thank you, Henry." A commotion at one of the card tables drew their attention. A tall man in a black hat stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the wooden floor. "You're cheating, Dixon," he growled, his hand hovering near his holster. The man called Dixon raised his hands placatingly. "Now, Wade, let's not be hasty. I won fair and square." "Nobody wins 4 hands in a row without marked cards," Wade insisted, his voice dangerously low. The saloon fell silent, the piano player's fingers freezing mid-note. Olivia watched as a third man at the table slowly stood, his movements calm and deliberate. He wore a weathered brown duster and a Stetson pulled low over his eyes. When he spoke, his voice carried across the room without effort. "Sit down, both of you. Dixon, turn out your sleeves. Wade, keep your hand away from that gun unless you're itching to meet your maker tonight." There was authority in his tone that brooked no argument. Dixon, looking annoyed but not surprised, rolled up his sleeves to reveal a playing card tucked into a hidden pocket. "Well, I'll be damned," Henry muttered beside Olivia. Wade's face darkened with rage. "You snake." Before anyone could react, Wade lunged across the table at Dixon. The man in the brown duster moved with surprising speed, stepping between them and separating the two with firm hands. "Dixon, I believe you owe these gentlemen their money back," he said evenly. "And then I suggest you find another establishment to practice your talents." Dixon glared but complied, tossing coins onto the table before slinking out of the saloon. The tension in the room gradually dissipated, conversations resuming as the piano player struck up a new tune. The man in the duster turned, and for the first time, Olivia saw his face clearly. Strong features framed by a short beard, eyes the color of a summer storm, and a small scar that ran along his jawline. He couldn't be much older than 30, but there was something in his gaze that spoke of experiences beyond his years. He approached the bar, nodding at Henry. "Whiskey, straight." Henry poured the drink and pushed it toward him. "Much obliged, Wyatt. That could have turned ugly fast." "Just doing my part to keep the peace," the man Wyatt replied before downing the whiskey in one smooth motion. His eyes shifted to Olivia, his gaze assessing but not unkind. "Evening, miss." Olivia nodded politely, hoping he wouldn't ask questions she couldn't answer. But as he studied her more carefully, his brow furrowed. "You're hurt," he observed, gesturing to her shoulder where blood had dried on her blouse. "It's nothing," Olivia said quickly. "Just a scratch." Wyatt didn't appear convinced. "Scratches don't usually bleed that much." He paused, then added more softly, "Or come from bullets." Olivia stiffened. "I should go." As she turned to leave, a wave of dizziness washed over her. The room tilted alarmingly, and she grabbed the edge of the bar to steady herself. When had she last eaten? Slept? Strong hands caught her as her knees buckled. "Whoa there," Wyatt said, his voice seeming to come from a great distance. "I've got you." The world faded to black around Olivia as exhaustion finally claimed her. When Olivia regained consciousness, she was lying on a bed in an unfamiliar room. Sunlight streamed through a window, indicating it was morning. Panic surged through her as she struggled to sit up. "Easy now," a woman's voice cautioned. "You'll open that wound again." Olivia turned to find an older woman with silver-streaked black hair watching her from a rocking chair near the bed. She wore a simple dress and a kind expression. "Where am I?" Olivia asked, her throat dry. "My boarding house," the woman replied, standing to pour a glass of water from a pitcher on the nightstand. "I'm Martha Cooper. Wyatt brought you here last night after you fainted at the saloon." Olivia accepted the water gratefully. "Wyatt Prescott. He's our local peacekeeper, not officially a sheriff, mind you, but he keeps order well enough." Martha settled back in her chair. "He said you might be in some kind of trouble." Memories flooded back Maxwell's rage, her desperate escape, the days of running. Olivia's hand flew to her shoulder, finding it bandaged neatly. "Doc Miller patched you up," Martha explained. "Said you're lucky the bullet just grazed you." "Thank you for your kindness," Olivia said, "but I can't stay." "I need to." The door opened, cutting off her protest. Wyatt stepped in, removing his hat as he entered.
"Good to see you're awake, miss."
Hadis worried. "I apologize for the inconvenience," Olivia replied stiffly. "I'll be on my way as soon as possible." Wyatt exchanged a glance with Martha before addressing Olivia again. "Before you go anywhere, I think we should talk." He pulled a folded paper from his vest pocket. "This came in on the morning stage. Seems someone's looking for you." He handed her the paper, a wanted poster with a crude but recognizable sketch of her face. The description read, "Olivia Dawson, wanted for theft and murder in Silver Creek. Reward, $200. The blood drained from Olivia's face. "This is a lie," she whispered. "I never killed anyone." "I figured as much," Wyatt said, surprising her. "Most murderers don't faint from exhaustion while trying to keep a low profile in a saloon." Martha stood. "I'll leave you two to talk. There's stew warming on the stove when you're ready to eat, dear." She left the room, closing the door softly behind her. Olivia stared at the poster, her hands shaking. "How did you know it was me?" "I've been expecting someone to come looking for a woman matching your description," Wyatt said, leaning against the wall. "Word travels fast, even out here." Fear gripped Olivia's heart. "Are you going to turn me in?" "That depends." Wyatt's eyes held hers steadily. "On whether you tell me the truth about what happened in Silver Creek." Olivia swallowed hard. She'd been running for so long, trusting no one. But something in Wyatt's direct gaze made her want to unburden herself. "Maxwell Reed," she began, the name bitter on her tongue. "He owns half of Silver Creek, including the general store where I worked. He's been courting me for months, though I've given him no encouragement. 3 nights ago, he came to the store after closing. He'd been drinking," he said. She faltered, the memory still raw. "He said it was time I showed proper appreciation for all he'd done for the town, for giving me employment." Wyatt's expression hardened, but he remained silent, allowing her to continue. "When I refused his advances, he became violent. There was a struggle. I managed to break free and ran to the sheriff's office, but Sheriff Collins is Maxwell's cousin. He didn't believe me, said I was making trouble for an upstanding citizen." Olivia's voice cracked. "I went home to pack my things, planning to leave town quietly, but Maxwell was waiting for me. He had a gun." "And what happened then?" Wyatt prompted gently when she paused. "We struggled again. The gun went off." Olivia closed her eyes, remembering the deafening report, the look of shock on Maxwell's face. "He was hit in the shoulder, not fatally. But I knew no one would believe it was self-defense. I grabbed what I could and ran." "And he's been after you since?" Olivia nodded. "He and his men. I've been staying off the main roads, traveling at night. I thought I'd lost them yesterday, but they found my trail somehow." Wyatt was quiet for a long moment, considering her story. Why not go to the authorities in another town? With that poster? Who would believe me over Maxwell Reed's word? Olivia asked bitterly. "He has connections everywhere in this territory." "Not everywhere," Wyatt said, a hint of steel in his voice. Hope flickered briefly in Olivia's chest before dying. "It doesn't matter. He'll hunt me down." Wyatt straightened, his jaw set with determination. "Then I'll be the storm that stops him." The intensity in his voice startled Olivia. "You don't even know me. Why would you risk yourself?" "Because I know Maxwell Reed," Wyatt replied grimly. "And you're not the first woman to flee from him." Olivia's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" Wyatt pulled a chair closer to the bed and sat down. 5 years ago, my sister worked as a schoolteacher in a town called Willow Creek. Reed was expanding his business interests there. He took a liking to her." His expression darkened. "When she refused him, he spread rumors that ruined her reputation. She lost her position. Eventually, she felt she had no choice but to leave." "I'm sorry," Olivia said softly. "Where is she now?" "She headed east, to Boston. Last I heard, she was doing well." Wyatt's gaze met hers. "But I swore I'd never let Reed destroy another innocent life, if I could help it." "He's a dangerous man with dangerous friends," Olivia warned. "So am I, when necessary," Wyatt replied with quiet confidence. "Rest now. You're safe here for the moment, and you need to recover your strength." Before Olivia could protest further, Martha returned with a tray of stew and freshly baked bread. The aroma made Olivia's stomach growl, reminding her how long it had been since she'd eaten properly. "Eat up," Martha encouraged. "Nothing heals the body faster than good food and rest." As Olivia ate, Wyatt and Martha discussed plans in low voices by the door. She caught fragments, something about sending telegrams, contacting someone named Judge Williams, and preparing for visitors. When she finished her meal, exhaustion crept over her again. Despite her determination to remain vigilant, her eyelids grew heavy. The last thing she saw before drifting off was Wyatt watching her from the doorway, his expression resolute. The next few days passed in a blur of recovery. Olivia's strength gradually returned under Martha's attentive care. The older woman provided clean clothes and engaging conversation, never pressing for details about Olivia's past, but offering quiet understanding. Wyatt visited daily, sometimes bringing news from his inquiries, other times simply sitting with Olivia as she regained her strength. She learned he had come to Whispering Pines 3 years ago after working as a ranch hand, a tracker, and briefly as a deputy in Colorado Springs. The townsfolk had come to rely on him for protection in a place too small to warrant an official lawman. On the fourth day, Olivia ventured downstairs to the boarding house's cozy sitting room. Martha was teaching her to play checkers when Wyatt arrived, his expression grave. "They're coming," he announced without preamble. "Reed and 4 men were spotted at Fort Collins yesterday, asking questions about a woman matching your description." Olivia's newfound peace shattered. "How long do we have?" "A day, maybe 2, Wyatt replied. "But we'll be ready." "I should leave," Olivia insisted. "I won't bring danger to the people who've helped me." Martha patted her hand. "Nonsense, dear. Whispering Pines takes care of its own." "But I'm not. You are now," Wyatt interrupted firmly. "And we have a plan." Over the next hours, Wyatt explained his strategy. Judge Williams, a circuit judge known for his fairness, would arrive the following evening. Telegrams had been sent to witnesses from other towns who had suffered from Reed's corrupt practices. Meanwhile, several trusted townspeople would help ensure Olivia's safety. "You want to confront him legally?" Olivia asked, disbelieving. "Maxwell owns judges and lawmen throughout the territory." "Not this judge," Wyatt assured her. "Williams and I have history. He's incorruptible, and he's been looking for a way to bring Reed to justice for years." Despite her doubts, Olivia found herself trusting Wyatt's confidence. That evening, she helped Martha prepare dinner for their growing number of allies. Henry from the saloon, Doc Miller, Thomas Grant, the town's telegraph operator, and Sarah Wilson, who owned the general store. As they ate together in Martha's dining room, Olivia felt a strange sense of belonging. These people, who barely knew her, were risking their safety to protect her. It was a foreign feeling after years of self-reliance. "What if it doesn't work?" she asked Wyatt quietly as they stepped onto the porch after dinner. The night was clear, stars scattered like diamonds across the velvet sky. "Then we try something else," he replied simply. "I'm not giving up on you, Olivia." The way he said her name sent an unexpected warmth through her chest. She studied his profile in the moonlight, wondering at the quiet strength that seemed to radiate from him. "Why are you really doing this?" she asked. "It can't just be because of your sister." Wyatt was silent for a moment, his gaze on the distant mountains. "When I first came west, I believed in the promise of this land that a person could remake themselves, that justice and fairness could prevail where there were good people willing to stand up for what's right." He turned to face her. "I've seen too many men like Reed take advantage of others, especially women, with no consequences. Sometimes the law fails, but that doesn't mean justice should." "And if standing up for justice gets you killed?" Olivia challenged. A half smile crossed Wyatt's face. "Then at least I'll die for something worthwhile." Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them, a recognition, perhaps, of kindred spirits. Olivia looked away first, suddenly flustered by the intensity of his gaze and her own reaction to it. "We should get some rest," she said, though sleep seemed unlikely with her thoughts in such turmoil. Wyatt nodded. "Tomorrow will be a long day." As predicted, Maxwell Reed and his men rode into Whispering Pines shortly before noon the next day. Olivia watched from the window of Martha's second-floor bedroom as 5 riders approached the saloon, their horses kicking up dust in the main street. Wyatt was waiting for them, standing on the boardwalk with a rifle held casually in the crook of his arm. Even from a distance, Olivia recognized Maxwell, immediately tall and imposing in his expensive black coat, his silver-streaked dark hair visible beneath his hat. "Can you hear what they're saying?" Martha asked, peering around Olivia. "No, but it doesn't look friendly," Olivia replied, her heart racing as Maxwell dismounted and approached Wyatt. The 2 men appeared to exchange words. Wyatt's posture remained relaxed but alert, while Maxwell's gestures became increasingly animated. Finally, Maxwell turned and gestured to his men, who dismounted and followed him into the saloon. Wyatt remained outside for a moment, scanning the street, before following them in. "That's our signal," Martha said. "Come on." They slipped out the back of the boarding house, where Thomas Grant waited with a wagon. "Everything's set," he told them as they climbed aboard. "Judge Williams arrived an hour ago and is waiting at the church." Olivia's pulse quickened as they drove through back alleys to avoid the main street. The small white church at the edge of town looked peaceful in the midday sun, belying the tension Olivia felt mounting within her. Inside, Judge Williams, a stern-looking man with bushy white eyebrows and piercing blue eyes, was reviewing documents at a table normally used for Sunday school lessons. Several other people were present. A well-dressed woman Olivia didn't recognize, two men who looked like farmers, and Doc Miller. "Miss Dawson," the judge acknowledged as she entered. "I've heard quite a bit about you from Mr. Prescott." "Your Honor," Olivia replied nervously. "I appreciate your willingness to hear my case. The law serves everyone, young lady, not just the wealthy and powerful," Williams said firmly. "Now, let me introduce our other witnesses." The well-dressed woman was Catherine Hargrove, the widow of a merchant whose business had been destroyed by Reed's underhanded practices. The two farmers, brothers named Jacob and Elijah Smith, had lost their land when Reed manipulated water rights in a neighboring county. All had traveled considerable distances to testify against Maxwell Reed. "We're building a case not just about your specific situation, Miss Dawson," Judge Williams explained, "but a pattern of harassment, corruption, and abuse of power. If successful, we can issue warrants not just for Reed's arrest, but for several of his associates, including Sheriff Collins of Silver Creek." Hope blossomed in Olivia's chest. "Do you really think it will work?" "Justice is never guaranteed," Williams replied candidly, "but it's always worth fighting for." Their planning session was interrupted by the church door opening. Wyatt stepped inside, his expression grim. "Reed's men are searching the town," he reported. "They've already checked the boarding house and the general store. It won't be long before they think to look here." "Are we ready?" Williams asked. Wyatt nodded. "As we'll ever be. Henry's keeping Reed occupied at the saloon with free drinks and talk of business opportunities. But we should move quickly." The judge gathered his papers. "Very well. Let's proceed to the town hall as planned. Mr. Grant, please fetch the townspeople who agreed to witness these proceedings." As they prepared to leave, Wyatt pulled Olivia aside. "You don't have to do this," he told her quietly. "We could still get you out of town, somewhere safe." Olivia shook her head. "No more running. If there's a chance to end this properly, I have to try." Wyatt's expression softened, and he reached out to touch her cheek gently. "You're braver than you give yourself credit for, Olivia Dawson." The unexpected tenderness of his gesture left her momentarily speechless. Before she could respond, Thomas Grant returned with news that people were gathering at the town hall as requested. Their procession moved quickly through town, Wyatt and Thomas flanking the group protectively. The town hall, a modest building that doubled as a schoolhouse, was already half full when they arrived. Word had spread quickly, and it seemed most of Whispering Pines residents were eager to witness the unprecedented proceedings. Judge Williams took his place at the teacher's desk at the front of the room. Olivia and the other witnesses sat in a row of chairs to his right, while the townspeople filled the student desks and lined the walls. "We're convening an emergency hearing," Williams announced to the assembled crowd, "to address serious allegations against Maxwell Reed and his associates. As a federal circuit judge, I have the authority to issue warrants and orders for arrest based on credible testimony." Just as he finished speaking, the door burst open. Maxwell Reed stood in the doorway, flanked by his men, his face contorted with rage. His gaze locked on Olivia, sending a chill down her spine. "What is this farce?" he demanded, striding forward. He stopped short when he recognized Judge Williams. "Your Honor," he amended, his tone slightly more respectful, but no less angry. I'm simply here to retrieve a fugitive from justice. This woman," he pointed at Olivia, "shot me and stole from my store before fleeing Silver Creek." "That's a lie," Olivia said, finding her voice despite her fear. "I never stole anything. And the shooting was self-defense after you attacked me." Reed's face darkened. "You little, Mr. Reed," Judge Williams interrupted sharply. "You will maintain decorum in these proceedings, or you will be removed." Reed glared but fell silent. His men hovered near the door, hands resting too casually near their weapons. Wyatt positioned himself between them and the witnesses, his own hand never far from his holster. "Now," Williams continued, "we are here to hear testimony regarding a pattern of behavior by Mr. Reed that includes allegations of assault, coercion, bribery of officials, and intimidation." Over the next hour, each witness shared their experiences. Catherine Hargrove described how Reed had pressured her husband to sell his store, then arranged accidents that destroyed their inventory when he refused. The Smith brothers detailed the manipulation of water rights that had left their farms barren. Doc Miller provided medical evidence of injuries sustained by women who'd resisted Reed's advances in other towns, but had been too frightened to press charges. Throughout the testimony, Reed's expression shifted from scornful to concerned as he realized the scope of the case against him. When it was Olivia's turn, she recounted the events in Silver Creek clearly and calmly, despite the fear that still gripped her whenever she met Reed's gaze. "He threatened to ruin me if I didn't submit to him," she concluded. "When I tried to leave town, he came to my home with a gun. We struggled, and it discharged, wounding him in the shoulder. I fled because I knew his influence with local law enforcement meant I'd never receive a fair hearing." Judge Williams nodded thoughtfully. "Mr. Reed, would you like to respond to these allegations?" Reed stepped forward, his charm returning as he addressed the judge. "Your Honor, these are clearly fabrications. Miss Dawson was caught stealing from my store. When confronted, she became hysterical and attacked me. As for these other so-called witnesses, they're obviously conspirators hoping to damage my reputation for their own gain. And the similar nature of their unrelated testimonies." Williams pressed. "The medical evidence? The witnesses from 4 different communities who have never met one another." Reed's smile faltered. "Coincidences, Your Honor. Or perhaps a coordinated effort to slander me, orchestrated by my business rivals. Like this man?" Williams gestured to one of Reed's companions, a thin man with nervous eyes. "Samuel Tucker, formerly employed as your bookkeeper in Silver Creek, who has provided us with documents showing systematic bribery of officials?" Reed whirled to face Tucker, his expression murderous. "You treacherous worm." Tucker paled, but stood his ground. "I've kept records of everything, Mr. Reed. Every payoff, every threat, every scheme. I'm tired of being party to your crimes." The room erupted in murmurs. Reed's control visibly slipped as he realized the extent of the betrayal. With a roar of rage, he lunged toward Tucker, only to find Wyatt blocking his path. "That's enough," Wyatt said quietly, his hand now resting openly on his gun. "This is a legal proceeding, Mr. Reed." Reed stared at him with hatred. You're behind all this, aren't you? The righteous Wyatt Prescott, still bitter that I ran your sister out of Willow Creek." "This isn't about me," Wyatt replied evenly. "It's about justice for everyone you've wronged." One of Reed's men made a sudden movement, drawing his gun with startling speed. Before he could aim, Wyatt's revolver was in his hand. The crack of gunfire filled the room, and Reed's man dropped his weapon, clutching his bleeding hand. Chaos erupted as people screamed and dove for cover. Reed seized the opportunity to grab Olivia, yanking her against him and pressing a concealed derringer to her temple. "Nobody move," he shouted over the commotion. "I'm walking out of here with her, or she dies." The room fell into a tense silence. Wyatt stood motionless, his gun still drawn but now useless with Olivia in the line of fire. "Let her go, Reed," he said, his voice deadly calm. It's over. Even if you leave town, there's nowhere you can run now. I'll take my chances, Reed sneered, backing toward the door with Olivia as his shield. Drop your gun, Prescott. Wyatt hesitated, then slowly placed his revolver on the floor. The rifle too, Reed demanded, gesturing to the Winchester leaning against the wall nearby. As Wyatt moved to comply, Olivia caught his eye. A silent communication passed between them, a plan forming in that instant of connection. You won't get away with this, she told Reed, purposely shifting her weight as if trying to break free, forcing him to tighten his grip. Shut up, Reed hissed in her ear. You've caused enough trouble. Wyatt placed the rifle on the floor. What's your plan, Reed? Take her hostage? Kill her like you tried to kill Catherine Hargrove's husband? How far are you willing to go? Reed's attention focused on Wyatt, his derringer still pressed to Olivia's head. As far as necessary. In that moment of distraction, Olivia made her move. She drove her elbow hard into Reed's stomach, simultaneously twisting away from the gun. Reed's shot went wild, the bullet embedding itself in the ceiling. Before he could recover, Olivia dropped to the floor. Wyatt moved with lightning speed, diving for his discarded revolver and rolling back to his feet in one fluid motion. Reed raised his derringer for a second shot, but Wyatt was faster. His bullet caught Reed in the shoulder, the same shoulder. Olivia noted with grim satisfaction that she had wounded days earlier. Reed howled in pain, the derringer falling from his grasp. His remaining men, seeing their leader wounded and the townspeople closing in around them, wisely raised their hands in surrender. Judge Williams stepped forward, remarkably composed despite the violence that had erupted in his makeshift courtroom. Maxwell Reed, you are hereby placed under arrest for attempted murder, kidnapping, assault, bribery of officials, and witness intimidation. Additional charges may be forthcoming as our investigation continues. As several townsmen moved to secure Reed and his companions, Wyatt hurried to Olivia's side. Are you hurt? He asked urgently, his eyes scanning her for injuries. I'm fine, she assured him, though her hands trembled with the aftermath of fear and adrenaline. You were right. We did it. Wyatt's relief was palpable. Without warning, he pulled her into a tight embrace. When he had that gun to your head, I thought he couldn't finish the sentence, his voice rough with emotion. Olivia returned his embrace, drawing strength from his solid presence. I knew you wouldn't let him win, she whispered. The next few days were a blur of official statements and legal proceedings. Judge Williams convened a formal court, with additional witnesses arriving from neighboring communities. Tucker's records proved invaluable, detailing years of Reed's criminal activities. Sheriff Collins of Silver Creek was implicated in multiple counts of corruption, and warrants were issued for his arrest and that of several other officials. Reed himself, his wound treated but his arrogance finally dimmed, was transported to Denver to await trial for his numerous crimes. The charges against Olivia were dismissed completely, with Judge Williams issuing a formal apology for the miscarriage of justice she had endured. A week after the dramatic confrontation in the town hall, Olivia stood on the porch of Martha's boarding house, watching the sunset paint the distant mountains gold and crimson. The events of the past days had left her feeling oddly adrift. For so long, her life had been defined by fear and survival. Now, with that threat removed, she faced an uncertain future. Footsteps on the porch steps announced Wyatt's arrival. He joined her at the railing, his presence as reassuring as it had become familiar. Beautiful evening, he commented. Yes, Olivia agreed, stealing a glance at his profile. Judge Williams left this morning. I know. He asked me to consider taking an official position as sheriff. Wyatt turned to face her. I'm thinking about accepting. Here, in Whispering Pines? Wyatt nodded. It's a good town. Good people. He paused, seeming to gather his thoughts. Martha mentioned you might be moving on soon.
Olivia sighed.
I've been thinking about it. There's nothing for me back in Silver Creek, but I need to make a living somehow. You could stay, Wyatt suggested, his tone carefully casual. Sarah Wilson is looking for help at the general store. Says her business has picked up enough to warrant hiring an assistant. That's kind of her, Olivia said, wondering why the prospect of staying in Whispering Pines made her heart beat faster. I'll consider it. I hope you will. Wyatt's hand covered hers on the railing, warm and calloused. I'd like you to stay, Olivia. The simple sincerity in his voice made her look up, meeting his gaze directly. What she saw there, admiration, hope, and something deeper, took her breath away. Why? She asked softly, needing to hear him say it. Because in the short time I've known you, I've come to care for you more than I thought possible, Wyatt admitted. Your courage, your resilience, everything about you. I know it might be too soon, and you've been through so much, but Olivia silenced him by placing her fingers gently against his lips. It's not too soon, she whispered. Some things you just know. The smile that spread across Wyatt's face was like sunrise breaking over the mountains. He drew her closer, one hand cupping her cheek with infinite tenderness. When his lips met hers, Olivia felt as though every step of her difficult journey had been leading her to this moment, this man. The kiss deepened, a promise of protection and passion that made her heart soar. When they finally parted, Wyatt rested his forehead against hers, his eyes closed as if memorizing the moment. Stay with me, he murmured. Not because you need my protection anymore, but because we're better together than apart. Olivia smiled, feeling truly free for the first time in memory. I'm not going anywhere. As dusk settled over Whispering Pines, Olivia Dawson and Wyatt Prescott remained on the porch, talking of future possibilities until stars filled the vast Colorado sky. The storm that had threatened to consume her life had passed, replaced by the promise of clear horizons. And if new storms should come, as they inevitably would in this wild, beautiful land, they would face them together, stronger for having found each other in the midst of the tempest.